It started innocuously enough. I'd heard whispers about hidden sites on the deep web that could only be accessed through special browsers. Curiosity got the best of me one idle weekend, so I downloaded Tor to start exploring this darknet. Most of it proved underwhelming, just drug marketplaces and hacked data dumps. I was about to log off disappointed when a site titled Eye of Sauron caught my attention. The homepage featured cryptic images and code phrases. It seemed to be organizing an alternate reality game of sorts. Intrigued, I solved a series of basic puzzles that unlocked access to the next layer. Each subsequently revealed URL sent me further down the rabbit hole. I became consumed with solving each intricate riddle using clues sprinkled through historic texts and art referenced on the sprawling site. Days later, I reached what appeared to be the final stage, a chat room portal linked to coordinates. Users discussed strange late-night experiences at the specified locations using languages I couldn't decipher. Their messages radiated a sense of reverence and shared secrecy. Burning curiosity propelled me to enter the map coordinates into my phone. They pointed to an abandoned warehouse near the old shipyards downtown. Why were so many users of this obscure site discussing meeting in this nondescript building? I had to find out. When I arrived well past midnight, the decrepit warehouse appeared deserted. Stealing my nerves, I entered through a busted side door. Empty crates and bare concrete greeted me in the moonlit interior. Was this just the final stage of some elaborate internet puzzle game? That's when hushed voices caught my ear. I followed them to a rear stairwell leading down into pitch darkness. The murmurs echoed from below, along with a faint green glow. Hands trembling, I descended slowly. The voices grew louder and more agitated. Reaching the bottom, I peered into a massive chamber filled with towering server towers, their lights blinking erratically. Dozens of people in dark robes stood facing away from me, encircling something and chanting in unison. I should have turned and ran right then. But morbid curiosity kept me rooted in place, watching the strange ritual unfold. The robed group seemed to be worshipping some mammoth machine they tended to fanatically. I noticed splashes of blood among the cables snaking over the concrete floor. This was no game. That's when the screaming started. One of the robed figures was dragged into the center of the circle by two others. He pleaded for mercy as they strapped him to the giant metal apparatus covered in wires and glowing diodes. My stomach dropped as the machine roared to life. The man's screams grew guttural as currents of energy surged through him. He thrashed violently against the restraints, skin bubbling and charring. Until finally he went limp, smoke rising from his lifeless body. I must have gasped because heads began turning my direction. Wasting no time, I scrambled back up the stairs just as cries arose at the intruder. Outside, I jumped on my bike and pedaled madly through the night, certain I was being pursued. But dawn broke without any followers materializing. I wish I could forget the horrors witnessed in that sub-basement. But over following weeks, reminders kept appearing. Strange figures and vehicles lingering outside my house. Messages on my phone from blocked numbers promising it wasn't over. And photos texted to me from inside my own home while I was out running errands. They were sending a clear message: there would be nowhere to hide if I went public about the warehouse gathering. But how could I stay silent? That moral debate became irrelevant after the first box arrived. No return address or note inside, just Polaroids showing bodies in different states of mutilation and decay. Some looked like the missing persons photos that had been circulating locally in recent months. It was obvious these were trophies of their secret society's victims, sent to intimidate me into silence. For a time, their threats worked. But the guilt of complicity grew overbearing until I could no longer stand it. I brought the grisly pictures to the FBI and told everything. It felt like a massive weight lifted from my chest, even though it meant needing federal protection now. I prayed the authorities could dismantle whatever that cult was building in their lair. But my hope quickly turned to despair. No matter how thoroughly the FBI combed the warehouse, they found nothing, no basement chamber, server stacks, or bizarre machines. According to all records, the entire property had been abandoned for decades. They accused me of an elaborate internet-fueled prank. Devastated, I had no way to prove otherwise. The users from that deep website had all vanished without accounts left behind. And any evidence had long been scrubbed away. No one would believe this wasn't some elaborate hoax. Except the silent watchers still lingering just out of sight around my home. Now, without help from authorities, I was tempting fate staying here any longer. That night, I packed my essentials and drove far away, leaving everything else behind. A small price for freedom. But disappearing completely proved impossible. Their digital tendrils were everywhere. Online threats followed me no matter where I tried to hide. Ominous messages racked with implications. We were saved by IT, and so will you be. I knew my only option was to keep driving and ditching lodgings endlessly. This frantic fleeing ended today when I awoke to find a coded missive taped to my motel door. Unable to decipher it, I crumpled it up in frustration. Only after throwing it away did I notice the dumpster already contained a duffel bag notched with strange symbols. Dread rising, I opened it. Inside was the severed head of my old FBI case agent, eyes wide with frozen terror. I fell to my knees in shock, bile rising to choke me. No mistaken identity, his was a face seared into memory. They had followed us both since we crossed them, toying with their prey. But no longer. Hands still trembling, I forced myself to think rationally. I shoved the bag back in the dumpster and wiped down every inch of my room. Then, gathering my bug-out supplies, I slipped out quietly to find the nearest bus station. The open road no longer held any freedom. Now it only brought me closer to the execution they had planned. But I would not make it easy for them. My options are few, my time short. Witness protection is useless against an enemy as resourceful and ruthless as this. But I refuse simply to surrender and face their hideous machine like so many before me. Tonight, I plan to lure them with a false trail into the densest wilderness I can reach. If I must die, it will be on my terms, destroyed by the elements before they can take me. The winter's cold embrace holds no terror compared to their all-consuming darkness. I pray anyone who finds these desperate last words heeds their warning: burrow into this shadowy web at your own dire peril. Not all that crawls within our digital catacombs is meant to see the light of understanding. There are roving eyes below that search steadily for those who know too much, who have strayed too far past what their hollow minds can bear. Seeking always to expand their dominion and swell their slave ranks with lives and souls condemned to fates worse than death. I do not expect mercy. But I will decide the time, not them. And by one final act of defiance, vindicate the truth glimpsed beneath the surface. It is all that sustains me anymore, the truth. A torch held high, illuminating the devouring darkness closing in on all sides. It has been a lone battle with no hope of victory. Only survival until the last. But in my frail human hand, the light still flickers. So I continue down the narrowing path unseen. Until the moment comes to turn and face the shadow's cold embrace.